Hey folks, Eric Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. What we are witnessing right now in the streets of Iran is one of the greatest mass slaughters from a government upon its own people since the days of Mao in China and Stalin in the Soviet Union. That is no exaggeration. At least 16,500 Iranians have been slaughtered in the past 2 weeks alone by the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism, this wicked regime in Tehran. By the way, hundreds of thousands more Iranians injured, wounded, and look, that 16,000 plus fatality number is likely much higher. This butchery, this genocide of the Iranian people, courtesy of the Ayatollahs, is happening in real time, and yet the silence in much of the world is deafening. Well, President Trump has not been silent about this. Last week, he made several threats towards the Iranian regime, and now people are asking, will he follow through? Trump vowed to help the Iranian people who are demonstrating in the streets against this demonic regime. He literally said on social media that help is on the way. He said that the United States is locked and loaded, but now we've had this lull for about a week. Many thought last Wednesday, about a week ago, that the United States would take action against the Iranian regime. But again, we've had this lull. The Iran story, the genocide of the Iranian people, has in many ways disappeared from the front line. The mainstream media, or from the front pages, I should say, the mainstream media is yawning. They're not showing any interest. Yet meanwhile, there is a U.S. carrier group heading towards the Middle East. U.S. fighter jets as well, U.S. missile defenses being put in place. President Trump has been a man of his word when it comes to making threats against the likes of the Iranian regime. Look no further than the elimination of Iran's nuclear weapons program back in June. I would be surprised, folks, if he does not act here. Perhaps he won't. Anything is possible, but that would not fit with his M.O. from not only his first term, but also his second term thus far, where he has been tougher on the Iranian regime than any U.S. president ever in the past 47 years since this regime came to power in Tehran, taking out Qasem Soleimani, the terror master, removing the United States from that disastrous Iran nuclear weapons deal, destroying the nuclear facilities. And now the real moment of truth arrives when this regime is teetering on the brink. Will President Trump deal the final blow to send this regime into the ash heap of history where it belongs? Well, here's what the Iranian regime is saying in response to President Trump's threats. This is from an Iranian parliamentary commission, the Iranian parliament, their government, saying yesterday, quote, any attack on the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, means a declaration of war with the entire Islamic world and must await the issuance of a jihad decree by Islamic scholars and the response of Islam soldiers in all parts of the world. They are declaring an Islamic jihad against the United States, a global Islamic holy war. That's what the Iranian regime is threatening if the U.S. is to strike. And then here was Iran's foreign minister earlier today, quote, unlike the restraint Iran showed in June 2025, our powerful armed forces have no qualms about firing back with everything we have if we come under renewed attack. Basically, he's saying that the Iranian regime will go out, in their view, in a blaze of glory. And it's very likely, folks, that if the U.S. attacks, and we don't know the nature, how large the attack would it be limited surgical strikes against, say, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, against the supreme leader himself, or would these be widespread strikes with the goal of regime change? Either way, it's pretty certain that the regime will react by firing ballistic missiles, say, at U.S. assets in the region, and very likely at Israel as well. God forbid, it's a nightmare scenario, but that could be what the regime does. It's all on the table right now. And we talked to the founder of the Iran-Israel Alliance, journalist and commentator Emily Schrader. She does a great job about the latest on the ground in Iran and what comes next. Take a look. Always great to see you. It seems that the mainstream media now has moved on from the Iran story, and yet the carnage continues. Over 16,000 people slaughtered by this regime. Emily, what is the latest you're hearing from on the ground in Iran, those brave protesters literally putting their lives on the line for freedom?
Well, you described it pretty accurately. It is hard to get information out because of that communications blackout. And the fact that the media already seems to be moving on is precisely by design of the Islamic Republic. That's part of the reason that they shut off the internet. The information that we're getting out is always a few days late, at best, 8 to 12 hours late. The footage that we're getting is footage from January 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, the protests that took place during the worst part of the massacre that we saw. It has been ongoing. There have been reports of sporadic, small scale protests, although for the most part, it's now martial law across Iran. We see the IRGC in the streets patrolling, blasting from loudspeakers speeches of Khamenei and also threats to the public, warning them not to assemble. There's a lot of chaos going on, a lot of oppression going on in the streets. And in addition to the thousands that we know have been killed, just that we know so far, we also know that there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, who are injured from these protests. And beyond that, tens of thousands who have been arrested. Now, the regime has been very clear that they intend to execute all of those they deem as being involved with these protests. Of course, they're attributing blame to Mossad or the United States or anyone other than themselves. But at the end of the day, the only foreign intervention we've actually seen on the ground in Iran is that of the Islamic Republic, which has brought in more terror proxies from Iraq, at least 5,000 of them, to slaughter Iranians on Iranian soil. So that's what's happening right now on the ground. The people are really, really desperate, looking to President Trump for help, for assistance in a dire situation.
Yeah, Emily, this is the kind of mass slaughter we've seen in the Soviet Union under Stalin, in China under Mao, slaughter of their own citizens. It's really unprecedented, at least in this century, in the 21st century thus far. Over 16,000 people murdered by this regime. You mentioned President Trump. Look, he has promised to come to the aid of the Iranian people. He tweeted out, help is on the way. What do you think the latest is there? He has traditionally been a man of his word, especially when it comes to the Middle East and Iran. He destroyed the nuclear facilities, of course, last June. But right now, the Iranian people are hurting. And if the United States doesn't come to the assistance of the Iranian people, the regime, it seems, will only tighten its grip.
Well, you're absolutely right. If President Trump does not intervene, this is going to be a lot longer, a lot more bloody, and a lot more difficult for the Iranian people. Ultimately, the Islamic Republic will fall. But is it going to take more lives being lost? Is it going to take some kind of a civil war or even an insurgency? I don't know. That ultimately is up to President Trump right now. And I appreciate his comments of solidarity with the people of Iran. He gave them a lot of hope and inspiration, and more people came to the streets as a result of that. But the flip side of that is that he has a responsibility when he says stuff like that as the president of the United States. And so to not do anything for now a week is very concerning to me, of course, as someone who's advocating for human rights, but also to the people of Iran. There are protesters who are dead today because they believed that President Trump was on his way to assist to fight back against their oppressors, their own government, the Islamic Republic of Iran. And that is truly a tragedy. Now, any revolution is going to have bloodshed. That's the unfortunate reality. We don't want to see it, but that is what it's going to be. It's just a matter of at what scale at this point. And only President Trump has the ability right now to stop that bloodshed from getting worse.
Emily, so well said. He must follow through. He made the promises to the Iranian people. He must follow through and, God willing, push this regime out the door into the ash heap of history where it belongs. Say the regime stays in power. What does that mean for the Iranian people and for the region? Really a nightmare scenario, it seems.
I actually don't think that's the worst case scenario. When we're looking at the future of Iran, the worst case scenario is that Khamenei only is taken out and the IRGC maintains power. We have to understand that when it comes to the Islamic Republic, the problem isn't only one leader, as it has been in certain other dictatorships. The problem is the system. In English, it's called the guardianship of the Islamist jurist. That means that the supreme leader has the total control over everything in the political sphere at the state level. That is a complete theocracy, and that itself is what needs to be deconstructed. The IRGC is not the the army of Iran. I'm not sure if a lot of people realize this. They are tasked with protecting the Islamic Republic itself. That's why they're the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, not the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. And so their task has nothing to do with protecting the people of Iran, which is part of the problem here. The IRGC has been allowed to have free reign, carry out whatever terror acts they want, take money from the people of Iran, launder it through Europe, through Canada, through other places, with almost no scrutiny, with almost no consequences from the international community. And that, in and of itself, is a crime against humanity. So we need to see progress on that front with the money laundering issue to combat the IRGC. We also need to see kinetic support for the protesters on the ground, ideally from President Trump, and who knows, possibly also the state of Israel.
Yeah, Emily, great breakdown. Last question, about a minute left. You mentioned the international community. What do you make of, really, to me, the deafening silence from the left in particular, the so-called global community, in the face of this mass slaughter by this Islamist regime in Tehran?
Well, I think it speaks to the hypocrisy and the fact that, just if we look at the mainstream media, for example, they had no problem spouting these statistics from Hamas, which is a proxy of the Islamic Republic, for 2 years, despite the fact that this was from a terrorist organization that cited exactly 0 combatants, which of course makes no sense in a war. But when it comes to Iran, they suddenly are very skeptical of any figures coming out. They don't want to publish any of the correct information about what's happening. They've been constantly minimizing the influence of the opposition leader, the crown prince in exile, Reza Pahlavi. There's a lot of disinformation efforts going because standing up to bullies, standing up to Islamic theocracies is not an easy thing to do, even for a country like the United States. But that's all the more reason that we have to do it right now. We don't have a choice when it comes to facing off against evil like this. We've been here before, and I sincerely hope that President Trump doesn't make the mistake of doing nothing and look back at this day in history and say, wow, I wish I had done more.
Great breakdown there from our friend Emily Schrader. Folks, be sure to follow her on X and across social media. She's doing very important work right now and has great contacts on the ground inside Iran. While you're at it, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Click notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. President Trump, by the way, responded today at the Davos World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, to Iran's threats. He said basically if Iran does anything, including to him, because remember, we've covered here on the newscast, the live stream, that the Iranian regime has directly threatened President Trump with assassination. He said if that happens, their country will be blown up. Literally, he said that, and I quote directly. So things are coming to a head. And I find it unlikely that the Iranian regime would go out quietly. So folks, keep this all in prayer. This is a pivot point in the Middle East, the world's most chaotic and strategic region. If this regime would be gone, we pray the Iranian people would rise up and have freedom, but it's all on the table right now, a very precarious moment. Again, it's kind of fallen from the headlines over the past week. The mainstream media has moved on from the Iran story, but I have a very sneaking suspicion that it's about to heat up in a major way once again, so keep it all in prayer, no doubt. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.